when you input a new relationship in there, let's say it's your mom, your dad, your friend, your romantic partner, your whoever it is, it will start to give you reminders. Hey, you haven't talked to this person in a week. Maybe you should reach out. You haven't talked to this person in 2 weeks. Maybe you should reach out. Because all of us have busy lives. We all get caught up with bullshit and just the busyness of being alive day to day. And a lot of times we neglect the relationships that really, if the relationships aren't healthy and you don't have relationships in your life that are good and strong and you take active steps to keep them that way, what's the point?
Welcome to the Bomb Life Podcast, where fitness, mindset, and real talk collide. This isn't just about workouts. It's about transforming your body, mind, and life. Get ready for unfiltered conversations, expert advice, and the motivation you need to level up in every way. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bomb Life Podcast. I am your host, Melissa Vogel, and yes, you heard that right. The Bomb Mom Podcast is now the Bomb Life Podcast. This is our first episode with our new title and all of our shiny new toys. I am so excited about this, you guys. Now, this was a really hard decision to make. I was not sure, oh my God, do we do this? Do we change the name? How are we going to do it? This is going to be really freaking hard, but I do hard things, right? I do hard things and I'm open to change. And that's what I'm telling myself, my brain and my body. But you guys, changing a name of a podcast, we changed our platform, our server. If you know anything about the podcast world, who pushes us out, we changed that. There's so much involved in it. And we've been working on this for a really long time. And it's finally here. So this podcast is now officially the Bomb Life Podcast. Now, many of you are probably going, why? Why did you change? Why did you change from the Bomb Mom Podcast to the Bomb Life Podcast? You guys, this podcast has blown up. It has become more than I ever imagined that it would. We reach so many people now. I mean, we have teens listening to this podcast. Not always appropriate, but we have young adults. We have men that listen to this podcast. It's not just moms anymore. And I'm like, man, are we limiting our audience? Are we limiting people to tune in and get incredible information and conversation, everything that this podcast provides, by having the title be Bomb Mom? And I'm like, God, but I love bomb. I say it funny. Every time I say bomb here, people are like, what are you saying? I don't want to lose that word because I say it so Michigan. And I'm like, but what do we change it to? I love that. It's what I'm known for. Life. We are living a bomb life and world. And I want everyone to live that life and experience that. And I'm like, it's time. I did a lot of soul searching on this and I wasn't sold at first. I'm like, God, are we doing more damage than good? And the more I thought on it and meditated on it and prayed on it, I'm like, it's happening. It has to happen. And it's time. It's time to happen. Before we fully dive into spring and summer, I wanted the change to happen. And now it's here. And I'm thrilled. I'm really excited about it. We have a new logo for the podcast. We have new swag coming out, which I'm like, God, the logo is so cute and it looks so good on a hat and sweatshirt and t-shirt. And I hope everyone embraces it. And it's time. And this is scary for me. It's really scary because everyone knows this is the Bomb Mom Podcast. Now, when you go to the podcast, nothing changes, right? Everything on your end that you guys see, nothing changes. Everything's on the backside. It's still searched, the same and everything. So don't think you have to go anywhere else to look for it or whatever. It's just the title name. And I want to be able to open this up to everyone. And I didn't want the name Mom capping anyone. And I got feedback that even women, they were like, well, I'm not a mom. We have a lot of women that listen. They're like, I'm not a mom. And we were finding out that we had a lot of women that weren't moms, weren't tuning in too. And as you guys know, as listeners, we cover everything on this podcast that is for everyone. Mindset, sex, relationship, health, pleasure, nutrition, working out, cracking the code, dating, like you name it, we cover it. And it's not just for moms, and I love moms. I'll continue to work with moms. Absolutely. And this is for moms, but is it just for moms to be called the Bomb Mom Podcast? The answer was no. So here we are. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to our swag so you guys can help support. I mean, how cool would that be to be out walking and see the Bomb Mom Podcast on a shirt or something and be like, oh my God, you listen. So I'm going to put that link in the show notes. Go to the show notes and you'll see the link to that. I'm so blessed that we made it, you guys. We made it to 263 episodes and they have flown by and every single one is fabulous. So I can't thank you guys enough for being listeners, for continuing to follow, to continue to trust. It takes a lot of trust to listen to someone and trust the guests that I'm bringing on and everything that all entails. So thank you for supporting us. Now go support more and get your swag and copy and paste the links to the shows, the 3 little dots, click the link, share it on your social media. Be like, hey, I just listened to this episode and it was incredible. Listen to the Bomb Life Podcast with Melissa Vogel. Oh my God. Okay. So now I have to introduce my guest because this was just like such a good fit too, because it's awesome. We're talking about a whole new topic and how to collect data in your life to help you live your best life. And that's literally what we did with this podcast and this name change and everything too. Today, I have James Pizzola on. And Mr. James Pizzola is an expert in blending technology with psychology with an emphasis on relationship, health, and personal growth. He focuses on helping people track and improve their interactions with those who matter most, partners, family, friends, and even coworkers. And through tools like the RITE App, RITE, he improves insights into how small everyday moments can shape the bigger picture of your relationship. And in this episode, you guys are going to learn how to identify patterns in your relationship, understand what contributes to healthier connections, discoverable actions and strategies to strengthen the bond. Like, you guys are going to feel so empowered. This app, the RITE App, is so freaking cool. I use this. I have my therapist with me using it. Wait till you learn what this is. Like, genius. And you guys hear me talking all the time about collecting the data, doing check-ins, right? Doing a check-in, collect the data. Where are you at with things? It's a Wednesday. Did you check in? Where's your data? How many workouts did you get done? How many did you not get done? All of that information is super important. Now you can do that with your relationships, and they help you see a better insight to the health of them. You can have your therapist get the same app and share your notes with them. So you don't, like I talk about this in the episode, you don't have to remember what to cover in the next episode. You can take notes and share it with them. And you can rate these interactions like, oh my God, okay, so we dive all into that. And we're talking about healthy relationships and how to build them and grow them and love language. It's such a fucking good episode. It's so good. And we're so blessed to have James on here. So go to the show notes, you guys. There will be links there where you can download the app, follow him, go to the website, all of the things. And of course, I'm going to put the links in there for you to book a discovery call with me if you want to talk about how to collect data on your health and start moving in the right direction and live that bomb life. All right, everyone, enjoy the show. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today we have James Pizzola on. Welcome, James.
Hey, thank you for having me, Melissa.
I am so excited to dive into all things relationship today, connecting with health and fitness. We've already had great conversation before we hit record, you guys. So I'm sorry we didn't hit record sooner. You're already missing out.
Don't worry, we'll recap it.
So, James, we're going to be talking about this app that you've created, which is called the RITE App. Am I getting it right?
It's called RITE. It stands for Relationship Interaction Tracking Experience.
Oh my God. Okay. So RIT, and we'll dive all into that. And that will make sense after we cover what we're going to cover first, because you blend technology with psychology. You're bringing those two worlds together, which I can relate because I bring the mental health connection with the health and fitness connection together. So I bet you can probably relate how important bringing the two worlds in and combining them are.
Yeah, definitely very important.
Well, people don't get that. Tracking your relationship, having awareness of what is healthy, what's not, what patterns, what habits are going on. I don't think people see how important it is to stop, have awareness, see it, to create change, break all the patterns and habits that aren't serving you, you know? And I say the same thing with like health and fitness. I'm like, you guys, if you don't have awareness of why you're snacking in the pantry, why you're turning to wine at night, you know, every single night, why you say you're going to go to the gym and then you don't, like what's holding you back? If you don't have awareness to that, you're never going to create change.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And you probably see the same exact thing when it comes to relationships and everything too.
Yeah.
So I got to know, James, how did you get into this? Why is this what you do? Why did you create the app? Are you some big relationship guru that we don't even know about yet?
Oh, guru might be a pretty strong word. I wouldn't say guru. The reason I created this app is because I got out of a relationship that was about 5 years long. And unfortunately, it ended not in the way that was ideal. And to say that, I mean, it ended, which is not what I think either one of us wanted or anybody wants when they get into a relationship, is for something to end. But towards the end, it was really starting to get tumultuous. And I found myself kind of looking for a way to be able to see where we were going wrong. And not only if we could, if we started veering off the path of being together, how we could bring it back to get back on that path, but also with the ups and downs of the relationship, as a lot of people certainly have, where it's great one day and it's terrible, and it's great and it's terrible. Is this really something that is a net positive for my life? And how can I find an answer to that question? And so that's how I came up with the idea for this. So the app allows you to put in the interactions that you have with this person. So let's say, you go on a date, or you go to the grocery store, or you're having a text message back and forth that's getting a little heated, or you're spending quality time at the house on the couch watching a movie. You can track all of these interactions. You can rate them to what the significance level is and how you felt 1 through 10 about that interaction. You can recap kind of a description, add some pictures if it's a fun event, or if something happened where, gosh, yeah, this person threw something across the room and it broke. Look at this. And what that allows you to do is it will allow you to see the data of, like I said, those trends of, hey, is it great one day and then terrible and great? How can we fix this? And then if it does start to get to a point where you need a bit of additional help and you happen to have a therapist, you can share this interaction history with your therapist so they can get a better idea of the dynamics of the relationship and kind of guide you. Hey, you know what? With this particular instance where you guys came home and it's 5 o'clock and you started to argue, I can see that. Maybe take a couple of minutes to decompress first before you start coming together and telling each other about your day and everything that happened. So that's where the idea came from.
This is interesting. This is really interesting. And you guys, I purposely went into this interview like not knowing much about it. Like I have information and stuff, but like I didn't want to dive in too much because I really wanted to hear this as a listener, as someone who doesn't know much, because I wanted to see where like my brain goes. Okay, devil's advocate. This is my favorite role to play. Devil's advocate. What if people are listening to this and going, and I get this too. I get this in my world too, with health and wellness and stuff. What if people are listening to this and they're going, yeah, but then aren't you just tracking like all of the bad and then you're just focusing on all of the bad? Isn't that good?
Hopefully not.
Or?
You know what? Honestly, to a degree you are, because it does allow you to give the interactions a score so that you can see how the progression of that relationship is going. And if you find that score is going down, and there's quite a bit of metrics that you can look at within the app to see, how often have we done, gone on dates? How significant have the interactions that we've had been? What's the overall trend of those scores, the 1 through 10? Is that trending in the right direction? Are we keeping it in the upper echelon of, 6, 7s, 8s, 9s? The easiest way I would describe it is, and I think this really will hit a chord with your audience, is it's like a fitness tracker for your relationships.
Right.
If you go in and start doing bench press and you happen to track it, that's fantastic. You can see your progress.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was like, I have gotten similar questions this before too, of, tracking. And people will be like, well, I tracked on the calendar, it's pretty blank. I haven't gone to the gym. And so now I just see all of my failure in my face and all the times I didn't go. And I'm like, yeah, but that information, just because you don't like it, doesn't mean it's not helpful.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, because you don't like what you see, let that guide you. Let that wake you up. Let that light a fire inside of you. And I love how both these worlds are like coming together. It's the same thing with your relationship. So people who are married, people who are dating, people who are in a serious relationship, maybe aren't married, like all of them can use this.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be limited to just romantic relationships.
Oh,
You can use it
good
for
point.
familial, you can use it for friendships, you can use it for co-working relationships. That's kind of the appeal, I think. And we were talking about social media earlier, and
Mhm.
sorry to take a tangent, but I feel like this is probably an
We did.
important thing to say is social media, it's given us the idea of connection. Like, sure, yeah, I liked that photo. I just connected with this person. Did you though?
Yeah.
Really? And so one of the things that is built into the app also is when you input a new relationship in there, let's say it's your mom, your dad, your friend, your romantic partner, your whoever it is, it will start to give you reminders. Hey, you haven't talked to this person in a week. Maybe you should reach out. You haven't talked to this person in 2 weeks. Maybe you should reach out. Because all of us have busy lives. We all get caught up with bullshit and just the busyness of being alive day to day. And a lot of times we neglect the relationships that really, if the relationships aren't healthy and you don't have relationships in your life that are good and strong and you take active steps to keep them that way, what's the point?
Right. Well, and I was thinking too I see so many women that are, how do I say it? They're being gaslighted and they don't even know it. And that could be by like their own mom, their mother-in-law, their dad, their partner. And I'm sitting here going, wow, what a great way to collect data and see every time they have this interaction, it's getting a low score or this event is happening. Or I could picture myself going, wow, every time I'm around my parents, I'm triggered and my cortisol is spiked. And then I leave and I feel like shit. And holy God, this has happened for the last 3 months in a row and for the last 10 interactions. And I'm a firm believer that if a relationship isn't serving you, whether that's blood, whether it's someone you've known since kindergarten, whether it's someone you've been dating for 5 years, if it's not serving you and making you be the best version of yourself, it is okay to leave that relationship.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the problem with a lot of people is that, and I've certainly been guilty of this myself, is this will probably resonate with, I think, a lot of your listeners, because I think a lot of people just generally have gone through this. Have you ever gone through a breakup and you broke up because something was wrong, and then you find yourself romanticizing all of the good things and the bad thing, oh, that wasn't that bad. Making
I gotta
excuses, oh, that wasn't that bad. And you start justifying all these behaviors. And it's the reason people go back into relationships and they break up again and then they go back. And it's just, if you had the data to see and your own words in, hey, this happened and this is how I felt at this time, as opposed to thinking back on it and then justifying it to yourself, I think that would help a lot of people make smarter decisions. Or things usually just don't go from, oh, it's good, terrible. It progressively gets worse. And so if you're able to see those changes too, hey, we're starting to get off track here. How do we bring this relationship back to where it's healthy again? What do we need to do? And if that requires professional assistance, this again allows you to share that information with a therapist so that they can get a better idea and guide you in a better way.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm just like, I'm laughing inside because I geek out on data. Like everything for me is data. Like collect the data. You had a shit month. Let's use that data. And people don't realize that you can use your failures or the bad times or whatever to help you grow. And that doesn't necessarily mean like break up or, whatever. It just means help, whatever direction is the healthiest direction.
Yeah,
And
great.
when you were telling this story or talking about this, I'm reminded of my previous relationship, 3 years. And I don't know, it was probably 6 months before we broke up. And I started journaling. And I'm realizing how much what you're saying, it's like an advanced journal. It's like a journal on steroids.
That's a good way of thinking about it.
And I started journaling. And I remember this walk we took and got into a huge fight. I'm like, how did this even happen? This was supposed to be like a cleansing walk and it turned into a nightmare. And I came home and I journaled about it. And getting closer to the end, I pulled that journal out and I read it. And I was like, wow. And I was brought right back to how I felt. And I had forgotten about it. Just like how you said, what was the word you said? Romance?
Yeah, you romanticize the good things and you can justify away the bad things.
Justify. That's the other word I was looking for. Yeah. And that information right there in my face, I couldn't erase that. That information it's black and white. And it took me right back to that. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that. I forgot about how I felt at that moment. And then I realized like, oh, that just happened again last week. That same thing that I journaled about 8 months ago was happening still. So yeah, I feel like this is like a big journal on steroids for sure.
I don't want to paint it totally as a negative because I think there's a lot of things that the journaling can do. For example, like you mentioned, it's kind of like an advanced journal, which I would agree with because as I mentioned, you can log the interactions that you have. Hopefully they are good. And, you take pictures, a little selfie. Hey, we were up the mountains hiking, or we were down, at the nature center, or we were, went to see this comedy show and we had a lot of fun. And it'd allow you to look back on those memories also very fondly to just remind you that, hey, those are the good things that we have in here. And it's kind of like a walk down memory lane if you go back and look at some of those fun and pleasurable things that you guys did together.
Oh, I'm really glad you said that. Yeah, because I feel like I was kind of going on the dark train, huh? We're going a little dark path.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's all right.
No, it's true. And I think like everything needs to be collected, whether good or bad, to help push you forward. And that's a really good point of like writing down the good and the positive and then learning from that too. It's like I said before, it's like working out. We don't not put down a good workout or track that, at least I do, because, it was good. Like, it should have been good, No, I need to know, like, because I track everything on my notebook and I write down, like, what made me sore. The next day I put, like, smiley faces next to it, or I rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 of, like, the day before workout. And that really, really helps. It's the same thing. I need to know what worked. I need to know what conversation took place, what workout took place that got me to a good spot. So I love that this is a tool to help get you in the direction, whether that's good or bad. But man, I bet there's people listening that are going, I would be terrified to track the data of my relationship. I can think of a couple married now that I'm sitting there going, girl, run. Like, what the fuck are you doing? That's what I want to say. That's what the internal Melissa says. But, the outside, I'm like listening and I'm supportive and I'm just helping them separate facts from feelings, and this is personally and professionally. And I bet those people could be listening to this right now going, oh God, if I wrote down like the truth of this relationship, I think we would break up. I think we would get divorced. What do you have to say to that?
Well, it's designed to allow people to do it in about 30 to 45 seconds, to put in an interaction and
That's nice.
Put in a little description. So we certainly, or at least I didn't want to make it burdensome for people to log these interactions, because the more work it takes, the less people will actually do it. So it's just like a workout. If you don't put it in, I mean, the data is only going to be as good as what you put in. So if you put in garbage, or don't put in anything, you're not going to have anything to work with. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that people probably would discover if they did track the different, more significant events that happened. I think it would be very eye-opening for a lot of people. One of the things that kind of a spoiler alert for something that we haven't officially announced yet, so I'm announcing it right here, is we're working on a new piece of the app that allows for kind of a daily connection with, like I said, friends, family, those other significant people in your life, to where you can connect with them and it will give you questions like, hey, what's one of those memories that really sticks out to you about, your childhood?
Like the app will give you this?
Yeah. And so that you can answer, and then like I could answer, Melissa, and then my answer would be hidden until you answer, and then it would reveal both. So we can also learn more about each other from a little bit deeper level than, hey, how's it going? How's everything been? All right, cool. Talk to you later.
That's really, really cool. So that's coming out in the future? Like it'll be...
That's coming out in the future, yeah.
Like, we got to hear it first. That's really, really cool. I like that. And another connection piece. See, and I love this. I love finding the positive in technology because there's so many bad. Like I hate it so much sometimes, but I love finding ways to have the positive. And, I was going to say, just to go back for a second of talking about, like when we were saying that if people are afraid to collect that data and they see and they might be, God, I don't know if I want to do that. I think that should be eye-opening in itself of like, are you afraid to find the truth? Are you afraid to see charts, ratings, patterns? Because if you are, wake up.
There's probably a problem there.
there's probably a major problem there. And just some of the relationships, because I work with mostly women, and I get to hear all sorts of relationships, like from dating women to not me dating women, but women that are dating people that are married, people that have been married for a really long time and shorter term. I get to see it all. And there's a lot of women who, when they have a chance to vent, they're talking about, he didn't show up and make dinner. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And I know if those events were tracked and how many times he let her down and how many times she asked, can we please make changes? That chart would be lit up. And I know that information and that data, we can't be afraid of. You can't run from the truth. And I don't know, I felt the need to add that back in. I guess I'm thinking of specific listeners in my head. I'm like, I'm kind of saying this to you. If you think I'm talking to you, I am.
I've been guilty of this myself. I think men generally have a tendency to sometimes overlook aspects of things that are important to our partners. Women can do this too. I think it's probably skewed a little bit more towards, men not being quite as on the ball for certain things.
I can see that. It's just how you guys are wired.
Yeah, I mean, men and women are certainly wired differently. That's for sure. That is for sure. But again, that's where it goes back to, like you were saying, it's a chance to not let that resentment build up and have those conversations. One of the things the app does also is it'll notify you if you have 3 interactions that are considered negative in a row. It will prompt you to, hey, maybe you should reach out to a therapist. Maybe you should reach out to some friends.
Oh my God.
So you'll be able to have this information in there, but also, hey, you know what? We might be getting off track here. Let's either do something so that we don't get so far off track that we end up fucking hating each other. Because unfortunately, that's what happens. That resentment and that anger and everything builds. I know that happened with the previous relationship that I was in. And it's quite honestly, it's really sad because it was a great relationship at one time. And I think the combination of a lot of things happening, it destroyed it. It made me not want to engage as much. It made her resentful. If we would have had some of these tools, I think we could have saved it and it would have been great. But, try and just move forward at this point.
Yeah, I can relate. I can totally relate. And I know a lot of people listening too would be able to relate as well. I'm going to ask you this because I'm sure there are people listening. What do you say to the person in a relationship? And it could be a man or a woman that they are showing up. They're trying. They're like, hey, let's read this book together. Hey, let's download this app and use it together. Let's go to therapy. Let's try this church group. Let's do these things. And the person shows up, in the beginning and then they don't, or they're like, oh, that's dumb. I don't have time for this. I don't want to do that. And there always seems to be this one person that's like, hey, let's try. And the other person's always falling short, or never really trying. What do you say to situations like that?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I was the latter. My ex-girlfriend was the one who was trying to often make suggestions on, we could read this book, we could listen to this podcast, we could, do things to strengthen our relationship. And I would say, looking back in hindsight, because I really do feel pretty bad about that relationship ending, because quite honestly, that was one of the 2. That one was one of the most significant relationships in my life with somebody who I genuinely, with all my heart, loved, and I couldn't see past myself and didn't put in the work. And I'll tell you, regret is awful, and it's more worth it to, in my opinion, work on it as much as you can while it's still good before it gets to a point of irreparable damage.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the people listening right now are the other person in the other position that are trying to do the work, and they're listening to this to improve. They're the ones that's hearing this message right now, but hopefully they can pass this on and know that there's help.
I would say probably to that also is it can feel overwhelming to us. Hey, I want to sit down and listen to this book. Try small steps. Hey, can we listen to this book for 5 minutes? Maybe the next day. It's like the gym. You don't go and just knock out 2 hours if you haven't been in the gym in 6 months. Hey, go for 15 minutes. Some people, it's just, I'm told, go sit in the parking lot. Get there. You don't even have to go in. The act of going there. Do nothing and then go home. And then the next day, go there and then go in for 5 minutes and then leave. And then go in for 10 and then go in for, you know what I mean? Build up to it. You don't have to try and knock it out of the park immediately.
Yeah. And in a relationship, that could be, let's go lay on the bed side by side and hold hands.
Yeah.
10 minutes. We don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
let's just lay there and feel out each other's energy. We don't have to say a word. We're not going to sleep. We're not going to screw. We're just going to lay here.
Just be connected.
It's like going to the parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, we're all so busy all the time that I think sometimes we get lost in, sometimes we have the thing that we are working so hard to get already, and we don't recognize and appreciate that. And it makes us lose the thing that was the whole reason we do all of this other shit.
Right. Oh my God. This is so cool. Is this like in the App Store and right now, and people can download it and start using it today?
Yes, it is. If you go onto the Apple App Store or Google Play Store and type in RITE-app, it will pop up and you can download it and start tracking the health of your relationship.
That is so cool. Okay, so tell me more about how therapists can use this, because I have a therapist. I have been going to therapy ever since my divorce, and I'm thinking of like myself. I'm very open about my health and my wellness and mindset journey too. And I'm thinking like, God, if this is something I could share with my therapist and put notes in there and interactions and things, like I don't have to wait until I see her again.
Yeah.
And then I forget things. Like, is that a tool how it can be used as well?
Yeah, that's exactly how it can be used. And I appreciate you bringing it up. So the interactions that you track in the app, you have the ability to share those with your therapist. Now, the therapist has to have the app as well. They have a therapist side of it.
Okay.
And they can keep their various different patients organized, and then the various different relationships that each one of those patients has organized as well. The app automatically does that.
Like my relationships?
So, for example, if you were dating somebody, right, that's one relationship. Let's say you also have your mom in there. That's another relationship. And you share the interactions that you've had with both the person you're dating and your mom. Your therapist would be able to see you and then those two different relationships and the information and interaction history that you've had with those people. And what they can do is they can see not only the interactions, but they can also see the graphs and charts so that they, with a trained eye, can see those trends of, hey, looks like something's going on here, or it looks like this is happening. And they can also give you feedback specifically on the interactions. Like, let's say you had an interaction with your significant person that you're dating, and it went great or it didn't go so well. Therapists could see that, give you feedback, see what you put in there. Hey, it was, kind of tumultuous. We had this argument about this, and I had asked 3 or 4 times and still hadn't gotten done. Therapists can see that, give you feedback right there, and then you can see it immediately. You don't have to wait for the next session that might be a week or 2 weeks later.
Oh my God.
To get that feedback. Yeah.
That is so freaking cool, because there's a lot of times where things happen. Just this last week, I had to cancel my appointment. Like it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to make it. And I'm sitting here like in my notes in my phone, trying to like take notes or like trying to remember, like I really wanted to cover this topic and bring this up. And it's like slowly fading. What a really great place to put that in there so I don't forget it, and just because I forget it doesn't mean that it wasn't important. I have a very full, busy life and I can't remember every interaction. And that doesn't mean like, oh, you must have forgotten it, so it wasn't important. No, I'm just very busy.
Well, and how often do you go to your therapist and either you can't remember or like, oh, well, it was kind of like this. And then we talked about this, I think. I mean, a week or two can really throw in some difficulties in remembering what actually happened. But not only that, do you really want to sit there and spend the 20 minutes of what you're already paying for just describing a situation they could already know about?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and like whatever I did too, I've noticed before I go to my session affects how I show up there too. Like if I just got done going to the gym and I show up my thing, I'm like, everything is great. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you know what I mean? It shifts the conversation. Or if I'm having a really shitty morning, then I go there and I'm a whole different person.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I like something that could be consistent and that communication can be consistent and there's no like bullshitting. Because in my app, it could have been like, well, Melissa, I see like 2 days ago, you had a complete fallout with your parents again and shit hit the fan. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Where it really was a triggering event for me. And I'm like, let's just lift the rug and sweep that right under.
Don't we all have a tendency to do that? Terrible.
What do you mean? That wasn't that big of a deal. One of your Reels on Instagram. I wanted to make sure we hit this really quickly because I feel like it's important. I thought it was a really good reel. I thought it was a good message. And you were talking about speaking your partner's love language to them. And I thought, oh my God, this is a really great reel that everyone should hear. Everyone should hear that message. And we all have a love language, right? I mean, there's the book, what is it? The 5 love languages. I think the book, whatever. There's a lot of books and information out there about it now, but we have a tendency to speak to other people in our own love language. And it's a really common mistake. And I think it causes a lot of frustration in relationships. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's 5 different love languages, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard of them or heard of the book, where you have, words of affirmation, physical touch, gift giving, quality time, and so on. And I think what is normal for people to do is that old saying, treat people the way you want to be treated. Yes, that's good. However, that doesn't always apply, because not everybody wants to be treated in the same way in that context. So kind of as we were joking around before we started recording, if you're dating somebody or if I'm dating somebody and, hey, I really like the words of affirmation. Tell me I'm great. Tell me I'm wonderful. Tell me you love me, because that's what I want to hear. And I keep doing that to them, but I'm never around, or I'm always at work, or when we're going out, I'm not holding their hand. But I always tell them, oh, I love you. I love you. They may not feel it, because that's not the way they receive it. They may receive it as, yeah, I don't care if you tell me you love me. Show me you love me by holding my hand when we're out in public. Show me you love me by just having a night where we're just together, spending quality time, even if it's watching a movie. And I think a lot of people get that wrong, because naturally, again, it kind of goes back to, how would I want this? Well, then that's the way I think other people would want it. And that just might not be the case. And just like anything else in a relationship, conversation is going to be the thing that allows you to actually know your partner.
Right. And I felt like this was a really good point to bring up, because if you're tracking, say you're using the app for your relationship, for your marriage, whatever, with your partner, and you see these continuous like fights come up or these triggers, and if you can go back and look and maybe identify, what started that? What was the cause? What if you could see the pattern of, man, I keep, like, if it was like an actual language, I keep speaking Spanish to him. I spoke Spanish to him then, but he speaks Russian, and we got in a fight because of this, or he was mad at me, or he did this and I got mad at him for this, or whatever. You could probably identify like, oh my God, he keeps speaking to me in Russian and I don't speak that language. And you could probably see that trend happening too, which would open the floodgates to an amazing conversation of like, look,
oh, yeah.
I need to hear that you love me. I know you show me, I know you do the dishes, I know you buy me gifts, or I know you're always doing things around the house for me and you're cooking, whatever, but I need to hear it. I need to hear I love you. I need to hear that I'm pretty. I need to hear that you're not going anywhere. I need the reassurance, like Spanish. And you probably could go back and identify some of your arguments and triggers and everything going on, because you're like, oh my God, he's not speaking my language. So I thought that was a really good reel, a really good point, and another way that you could use your app and identify when shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to recognize where those points of miscommunication are, and then you have to have the conversations to fix them.
Yep, because you can't create change unless you have that awareness first.
Yep, that's right.
Same with the gym. I always bring everything back to the gym and health and working out and stuff, but it's the same thing. If you don't see where the problem is and you don't have awareness and admit it and like are open to it, you're going to stay exactly where you're at over and over and over again.
The last thing I'd probably add to that, just to kind of touch on the gym, is I would think of it like this. I mean, I think a lot of people who are maybe struggling in the relationship probably benefit from a therapist who knows what they're doing. It's kind of the same thing with the trainer. Like if you're lifting and your form is bad, you're either going to get hurt or something else is going to happen, where that trainer is there to, oh, you know what, you need to actually slightly adjust your hips, your back, your arms, whatever it happened to be. And it might be a simple little tweak, but how are you going to know if you're just trying to do it yourself?
Right. Yeah, that's one of my big messages on this podcast is you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do any of this alone. And the more tools that you have in your toolbox, the better life you're going to have. The more goals you're going to hit, you're going to live the highest quality of life. But there's a lot of shame, even around having a trainer or coaches. I have clients all the time that are like, yeah, but I'm a trainer too, or I was a group fitness instructor, or I've done triathlons before. I know how to do this. I should know how to do this. And I'm like, that doesn't mean you can. That doesn't mean you have to go at it alone.
Yeah.
Release the shame. This is actually a really good point because I want to bring this up. If anyone's like, God, should I download this app? Should I do it? Yes. The answer is yes, because I know there's probably shame and guilt around there. Be like, God, I'm going to feel guilty about tracking my relationship. Tell your partner, right? Tell them, I'm getting this app. And I'm going to track our relationship and everything. Hey, why don't you do it too? Get on it as well and let's do it together. But if there's any weird feelings around that, I'm all about share. Tell them. You know what?
Yeah.
Things haven't been so hot.
It facilitates the conversation. And if you don't have conversations around things that are bothering you, I think most of your audience, I certainly can attest to this. If you're not having those conversations to fix it, then it's going to not work out. And then you're going to feel often shitty that it didn't.
Yeah. And time is going to pass.
Yeah.
And then you just either prolonged a shitty relationship that was going to ultimately end in divorce or breaking up anyways, or you're just going to prolong your misery even longer.
And I think probably the biggest regret that somebody could have is the idea that something that could have been great went badly or went south when it didn't have to because they didn't take the steps in order to make sure that it stayed healthy, as opposed to, hey, you know what, looking back on it, we've all had those relationships that wouldn't have never worked anyway. I didn't really feel that great about that person, but those particular people that you really do care about and love, and it ends up going south, and those are the people that you think about for 6 months later, a year later, 2 years, 5 years later.
Yeah.
Don't let it fall apart when you could have saved it, because the regret that you'll live with is the worst.
Right. Well, and then if you put in the work and it still doesn't work, you can release that and know,
then
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. It wasn't there. And now I can let go. I gave my best effort. I put everything in that I could. Boom. And then you can release that. You don't have to carry it either.
Yeah. Agreed.
Oh, James, what a great conversation. I'm so excited to get this app. I'm
good. I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'll share on my social media too. I'll be talking about it and sharing it with everyone too, because I'm all about collecting that data in every area of my life. So where can we find you? We'll put everything in the show notes too, but give us your website, social media platform, everything.
Yeah, so you can find our website. It's RITEMobileAppCo.com, and all of the other social handles are going to be RITE Mobile App Co. or some version of that.
Okay.
Whether it's a RITE _ mobile _ all that. But that's where you can find us.
Perfect. And again, we'll put everything in the show notes for you guys. So if you're driving, don't worry about writing anything down. It's all there for you. James, this has been a great conversation. I hope we can work together again in the future. And I will definitely keep you updated on my app progress and my tracking and collecting data on all the relationships in my life.
Yeah, that just sounds fantastic. Thank you very much for having me on the list.
Oh, thanks for coming on. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy. Until next time. The Bomb Life podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The content shared here is not intended as medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any health, fitness, financial, or legal decisions. The opinions shared on this podcast are personal experiences and insight. So if you need expert guidance, go find the right professional for you. Thanks for listening.